Alexander Volkanovski. He will go down as one of the greatest UFC featherweights of all time. His greatest strength is being able to neutralize his opponents, like he has dark magic, reminding me of Captain Yami Sukehiro from Black Clover. Yami doesn't overpower magic, he slices right through it. It's not always about overpowering your opponents, it's about removing what makes them dangerous. Elite volume striker, neutralized. High-level submission threat, survives it. Dominant grappler, scrambles out. Today, I'm breaking down some ways Volk uses dark magic, and I'm giving you the drills so you can train it. Drills you can train alone. Let's start with a basic dark magic spell, so to speak, and go with space control. Similar to Yami's dimensional slash, which cuts space in half, Volk cuts the cage, so it's basically footwork. So warm up with shadow fighting and focus on footwork, angles. You want to collapse on those angles. You use those angles to set up strikes, you use feints to set up angles, and you use the feints and strikes to set up your footwork. Ideally, you try to work off of slipping off to a 45-degree angle. So use those feints, set it up, step off, and then strike. In this case, I'm using my feints to set up a stepping in left hook, so I use my feinting strikes, but notice my footwork, I'm stepping out and I land that left hook. Let's break it down again. So I feint with a couple of strikes, I'm reading, I feint a movement, but notice I shift and that allows me to land that left hook. Volk had fought Max Holloway 3 times, and Max thrives on rhythm, flow, and volume. Volk didn't try to out-volume him, he broke the rhythm. His dark magic was rhythm destruction. So when you're working the bag, you want to visualize somebody's coming in towards you, and you're trying to neutralize that first attack. One of your best tools will be your lead leg front kick, pushing them out of the way, keeping distance. And once you feel good about that distance you were able to create, you set them up with other strikes. Volkanovski has a really good lead leg roundhouse kick. You can use those as well, especially for inside leg kicks. Ideally, step off on an angle and use it as a setup. Visualize slipping a strike and then using that to follow through with a combo. In this case, I use a slip, cross, hook to the body combo, which Volk is really great at. And then if you want, layer that with another strike. In this case, add a roundhouse kick or a lead leg kick. Another great tactic to include is the check hook. The check hook is great when your opponent's trying to come forward at you and you counter with a hook as they enter in. Imagine throwing it and then following through with another combo. Volkanovski is only 5'6", so often he's actually a little undersized in terms of height against his opponents, but he's great at closing that distance. Let's call this dark magic spell void step, like distance severance. Visualize you're creating a dark rift entry where you're opening up space to step inside. And it's really about footwork and using your feints to get in. Here you can set up a jab and step right in, using that opportunity to get in close and land some strikes. You can also use your lead leg kick as your setup. And mix it up. Now your opponent has the threat of both a jab or the lead leg kick. Throw them a couple of times and use that to step right in. And notice I got back into position. I'm back out and I can again throw these strikes, set them up, and then find the opportunity to get right back in and then pull right back out. And don't be shy to play with different opening attacks. And of course, play around with follow-up attacks. But get used to finding that way to get in and out while making yourself a threat and making yourself hard to hit. You also want to make use of attacks that will get you inside. So here I used my rear leg roundhouse kick to get in close and followed up with a combo. Again, setting up high, get in close, and now I can work the body, work in close range strikes. Here I clinch up and apply the same thing. And there are many times you're going to have to disengage. So use your jab to throw in and back out. Notice I'm also level changing. I hit low and then I can come back high. Level changing will confuse your opponents. They think you're aiming high, but in reality, you're using it to get in close. Then play with all the movements. Play with your angles, play with the feints, set up low to go high, set up low to get in, or set up high to get low, and set up high to get in. And remember, angles are your best friends. I step in jab with an angle, and I step back out off an angle. I step in to follow through with a combo on an angle, and then I come right back out on an angle. Notice my entry is off on an angle against my opponent. Well, in this case, my opponent's a bag, but you get the idea. And even if I follow through with kicks, it comes off on an angle. In the first fight between Islam Makhachev and Volkanovski, Volk did a fantastic job of neutralizing most of Islam's wrestling. It's called his dark magic drill, the dark gravity reset. Because here, we're going to work on our conditioning and being able to sprawl within our bag work. The goal is to emulate being able to transition from an offensive attack to a defensive reaction, but the defensive reaction is against a grappler, somebody trying to shoot on you. So you will be throwing some sprawls in between your bag work. This is a very taxing round, as the goal is to be able to transition from high intensity strikes, offensive attacks, into defensive reaction, like the sprawl, and then getting right back into an attack. So you want to work the bag, work different strikes, but try to be spontaneous with that sprawl. But what's key to fight like Volkanovski, once you sprawl, make sure you get up into an attack immediately. Let's call this round the void lure, the counter collapse. Volkanovski has to adapt to different fighters, and sometimes the trickiest fighters are those who are good counter punchers. Volkanovski has somewhat underrated or underappreciated boxing. What he's good at is baiting you. So when nullifying a counterpuncher, you want to use your feints even more. Make them overreact. Lure them to throw that counterpunch. So in this round, everything works off of a feint. You create a reaction. You visualize you're creating a reaction, and then you enter in with your own counter or your own power shot. In this case, I'm using my lead leg roundhouse kick, which I showed earlier, as a setup. I throw it light. I'm actually not going hard. I'm using it to bait my opponent, hope they overreact, and then I follow through with a hard combo. Then you use the same tactic, but change the tempo or change the strikes. Make yourself a more unpredictable opponent. Not all counter punches are the same. Some of the hardest ones to deal with are the ones with a longer reach. So we apply the same tactics we did earlier against taller opponents. Setting up low, feinting low, and getting in. We're trying to lure our opponent with these movements that allow us to get in, to give us the advantage, just like Volkanovski would. I recommend many times to slow things down. That way you can break down certain moves, and then you can work them in real time after. And then mix it up by maybe throwing that move in reverse. Become a more unpredictable opponent, just like Volkanovski does, adapting to each situation, including his own. And now, let's work it all. Let's do a freestyle Volkanovski dark magic round, where you mix everything together. Imagine you're fighting every single type of opponent there is, just like Volkanovski has. He's pretty much cleared the division in the featherweight category. Work your footwork, your angles, your setups, everything. Include them all into this round. Work on your entry and exit strategies. Work on getting in close for those grimy, dirty boxing rounds, the fights that go up against the cage, where you end up clinching against your opponent. Applying continuous pressure, but with mixed attacks. But apply those defensive reactions in between, the spontaneous sprawls, and then get right back into it, back into the punishment. Emulate those close quarter strikes. Volkanovski is really good at these short, crisp punches on the inside. Use those, and then use that to get right back out on the outside. Again, working those angles, even though you're working in close range. Allowing them for a setup on the outside, or allowing for a setup on the inside. The main thing about this video is learning to adapt, just like Volkanovski. Even after 2 consecutive knockout losses, Volkanovski came back and won the featherweight title, defeating Diego Lopes, a very dangerous opponent, and then beating him again in a rematch for the same title. Much like Yami Sukehiro, Volk cut through Diego's dreams. No, seriously, one time Yami actually was able to cut through a dream with his dark magic. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you'd like more breakdowns like this, please don't forget, hit subscribe, hit that notification bell, and drop in the comments any suggestions of any fighters you'd like me to cover on how to fight like them, and maybe even compare them to your favorite fictional characters. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.